Hey y'all, it's Ryan. And I am so excited today to share the findings from a recent first author paper of mine with Drs. Lisa Christian, Chris Fagundes, and Julian Thayer. We recently published this paper in Psychoneuroendocrinology, and we studied how relationship quality may relate to physical and mental health for people in their first year of postpartum. Long story short, reporting being in a relationship with more negative qualities late in pregnancy was linked with worse depressive symptoms and reduced heart rate variability across the first year postpartum. But let's dive into all of that and why it matters and how we measured it all now. And bonus, Dr. Christian is with us today. I really loved working on this paper because stress and health during pregnancy was really one of the first topics that got me super excited in my first year of grad school. And this was when we read another review paper of Dr. Christian's. She's done several studies that follow women across pregnancy or postpartum to understand stress and health in this time period. And I had the opportunity to collaborate with her for this most recent paper. So first though, I'd love for y'all to hear more from Dr. Christian on why for this grant she specifically focused on the postpartum transition and all of the accompanying changes.
Both pregnancy and postpartum are periods of great change and transition, both in terms of physiology and lifestyle factors. Postpartum is characterized by physical changes, including neuroendocrine, immune, and cardiovascular effects as a woman transitions from pregnancy to non-pregnancy. In addition, postpartum is accompanied by significant life changes. These may include changes in family roles and structure, sleep disturbance, changes in household responsibilities and work roles, as well as new financial concerns. While many life changes may be welcome, even positive changes require people to adapt and adjust. In addition, many life changes may be experienced as negative or unexpected, which causes additional stress.
I love this explanation because Dr. Christian really captures how many different dimensions there are to this time point in people's lives. Something else that excites me about this research is the amount of depth available to potentially study the health of the pregnant person, their partner, how each of them interact and adjust to all of these changes, not to mention the potential to study infant health as well, and how it relates to all of these questions. For our paper, we focused on just the pregnant woman's report of the negative qualities in her relationship with her romantic partner. And we asked this when they were later in pregnancy and used this report to predict depressive symptoms and heart rate variability across 5 time points in the first year postpartum. And I'll break all of this down more now. First, why did we focus on depressive symptoms and heart rate variability? I'll let Dr. Christian explain depressive symptoms first.
In addition to the general experience of stress, clinical symptoms of depression are common. In the U.S., it is estimated that 10 to 12% of women experience major or minor depression during postpartum. Our understanding of the factors that contribute to increased risk for mood disturbance is incomplete.
We focused on heart rate variability because this gives us a good indication of the parasympathetic nervous system activity. And the parasympathetic nervous system is super important for understanding one's risk of adverse mental and physical health outcomes. And this is because the parasympathetic nervous system helps us to slow down after a stressor. So for example, the parasympathetic nervous system uses the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which acts to inhibit or reduce inflammation in the body. So heart rate variability, or HRV, reflects parasympathetic function. Think rest and digest. But what does it mean and how do you measure it? I'll keep this short, so please drop any questions you have in the comment section below. It's also important to keep in mind that the time points we're talking about, because HRV naturally decreases during pregnancy, so we really wanted to know when HRV might be increasing to pre-pregnancy levels, and also understand who might maintain lower HRV throughout postpartum. Heart rate variability reflects the activity of the vagus nerve, which is my favorite cranial nerve, and the vagus nerve does so much cool stuff. It has lots of responsibilities in our bodies, including helping control the pace of our heartbeats. So how do we measure this activity? Similarly to how we measure heart rate. Only instead of being interested in beats per minute, for HRV we care about the milliseconds within each RR interval. And if you don't know what an RR interval is, no worries at all. Here's an example of a typical EKG. So we're interested in how much variability there is in these intervals. And this is because we need to be able to respond flexibly to this ever-changing internal and external environments. So we have participants wear electrodes and extract a raw text file with the milliseconds between each RR interval. And I'll show you what that text file looks like here. Then we could use a program called Kubios to check for artifacts or just like outliers, right? And clean this data to prepare for analysis. Okay, that's all on HRV for now. And let's move on to relationship quality and why we cared about that now.
The quality of relationship with one's spouse considerably affects one's mental health, as well as biological health and physiology. Effects of relationship quality may be particularly important during the postpartum period due to the substantial changes occurring physically, mentally, and in social and interpersonal lives at this time.
And we measured relationship quality by asking people how negative the negative qualities in their relationships were. And like Dr. Christian said, this is because there are so many huge changes happening that a really negative relationship might only exacerbate that stress for the pregnant or postpartum person. We also know from research among non-pregnant adults that poorer quality relationships are associated with lower HRV, just generally. For depressive symptoms, we use this very well-validated Center for Epidemiological Studies depression scale, or the CESD. The CESD asks people to respond how often they have felt certain ways in the last week, such as feeling fearful, lonely, or having crying spells. There are 20 items on the scale, and we use a total score to represent the total depressive symptoms a person is experiencing. All right, finally, my favorite part. So what did we find? I am so excited to show you. Our first goal was really just to understand when that potential rebound in HRV would occur in postpartum. And we found that the change was all between third trimester of pregnancy and 4 to 6 weeks postpartum. So after that, there really wasn't a reliable increase across the rest of the year postpartum. So this makes sense and mirrors earlier studies with smaller sample sizes, but was really meaningful to see that the only significant increase in HRV happened in those first 4 to 6 weeks postpartum, which indicates how quickly the autonomic nervous system and the body is really adjusting in that postpartum time. Next, we looked into how being in a relationship with more negative qualities may relate to both depressive symptoms and HRV across the first year postpartum. And for each of these results, we control for factors such as maternal age, income, and pre-pregnancy BMI. We found that people in worse relationships maintained lower levels of HRV, which were significantly different from people in better relationships at 4 and 8, but not 12 months postpartum. And you can see here that with two different ways of measuring HRV that reflect parasympathetic nervous system activity, you can see that the patterns across time were very similar for people both in good or bad relationships, right? But people in worse relationships did maintain consistently lower levels of HRV. We also found that people in worse relationships experienced significantly higher depressive symptoms across the first year postpartum. And again, there wasn't a difference in the rate of change here. What we're really finding is a significant main effect, which means that the levels of depressive symptoms were consistently higher among people in those worse relationships in that postpartum time. So said another way, depressive symptoms did decline across the first year postpartum for people regardless of the qualities in their partner relationships. But people in worse relationships had more depressive symptoms at every time point. We hope that understanding the psychological conditions and biological mechanisms that underlie worse postpartum recovery can enable future researchers to use interventions to potentially reduce a person's risk in that postpartum time. And big thanks to Dr. Christian for joining us today. Beyond this paper, go check out Dr. Christian's work because she has so much more in the larger study than what we've been talking about here, and she'll tell us a little bit more about it now.
The current study was designed to examine relationships among psychological factors, relationship quality, and physiological functioning from late pregnancy through the first year postpartum. By using a longitudinal design with 5 assessments across this time frame, this study provides new and valuable information about typical changes in physiological parameters across this perinatal transition, and addresses factors that contribute to healthier versus less adaptive patterns across time. The current analyses focus on data related to heart rate variability. The larger study included collection of a variety of other biological and health indicators, including serum pro-inflammatory cytokines, neuroendocrine markers, the gut and oral microbiome, and measures of changes in body composition and body fat distribution over time. Moving ahead, these data will provide a wealth of information to continue building on knowledge of psychoneuroimmunology pathways linking stress and health in the perinatal period.
All right, y'all, that's all for today. Thanks for stopping by, and please click like, subscribe, and share with your friends for more videos like this.